Today we're going to talk about the 20 most common Zoom mistakes. Hey, before we get started, this video is sponsored by Restream, an application you can use to allow you to go live everywhere on 30 plus social media platforms. Check it out, and we have a special deal for you coming right from Feisworld. Now back to today's video. Hey, it's Fei Wu from Feisworld Media. This is another Zoom tutorial. Now, I'm not going to show you all the screens or the clicks today, but instead, today we're going to talk about the 20 most common Zoom mistakes. Look, we've all been using Zoom for a little while now, and we've all seen it, right? People's styles and things that are happening during the meeting. Oh, the oopsies and mistakes that people are making, it can be frustrating and even harder to communicate. If you're an employer or an employee, I'm sure you've noticed some of the mistakes that people are making, and it's hard to bring it up because at the end of the day, we're trying our best, but we don't know what the adjustments necessarily are or how to actually improve the situation. So that's what I'm going to cover all in today. And by the way, all 20 tips are so juicy and important. I hope you'll stick around. I'll try to make this video as brief as possible, but since there are 20 tips, definitely check out the summary and then really hear me talk it through. And I really hope you find this helpful. If you do, please hit the subscribe button, share with your family and your friends, your colleagues, and let's go. Mistake number 1, it's a technology fail. You're not checking your Wi-Fi. You're not plugging in that Ethernet cable. How should you go about that? So if you're having a regular meeting and if you have a strong Wi-Fi signal, for example, I use Verizon Fios, and that is the gigabyte package. Now, I know this option isn't available to people all around the world. If you worry about download speed, definitely try to buy an Ethernet cable that doesn't cost very much, or at the very least, check your Wi-Fi signal. You can go to places such as speedtest.net to make sure that you have sufficient upload and download speed. Zoom requires at a minimum of 3 Mbps for upload and download. Sometimes I notice that you probably need a little bit more than that based on what you're sharing. Secondly, what you want to make sure is go to Zoom and go to their file menu option. Make sure you have the latest package available. Make sure you check for Zoom updates on a regular basis, meaning on a weekly basis. When there's an update, make sure to upgrade to the latest version. Another tip related to technology, we're still in tip number 1, is make sure you restart your machine or you restart Zoom before your meeting. It goes a long way. Sometimes a restart with a reboot will really take you out of the trouble. Tip number 2, even though Zoom is digital, it's not all that different than real life meetings. So you want to remain to be calm, professional, coming with an agenda. In some cases, I argue that for a Zoom meeting, you want to be even more prepared than an in-person meeting. You want to look your best or look decent. Now, you can look very professional and even looking better with a single click. I have a separate video covering that topic, how to look good on Zoom with a single click. Not only Zoom has implemented the touch-up feature, now there's a little dial where you can actually change how much touch-up you need or you desire for your look. Tip number 3, related to tip number 2, is to represent your brand well. You might want to purchase some of the lights or decorations from Amazon or eBay. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but it will give you that branded touch. For me, I love having artworks in my office. In fact, I will set up a separate video since I moved to a new house to show you guys what I did very minimally to really decorate my new office. I want things to be very findable, searchable. So you want that background, that feel to come through your Zoom meetings as well. Tip number 4, the video feature, i.e. showing your face, is always turned off during your Zoom meeting. I have seen this a lot, and honestly, I find it annoying sometimes. If you're joining somebody's course, it is so helpful to have that face-to-face interaction. This goes a long way for students of any age joining Zoom classrooms. It is so helpful to have that eye contact, that exchange with your teacher. This also goes a long way for the sales and marketing meetings. When I teach on Zoom or when I witness these sales and marketing meetings, when the videos are turned off, I instantly feel like there's a lack of connection with the people I'm meeting, especially for the first time. Now I understand there are scenarios and situations where you might want to turn off video temporarily, but just want to make sure that that's not a habit. because a little charisma and smile goes a long way. Tip number 5, you think Zoom is always necessary. As it turned out, not really. I still enjoy talking to people on the phone, texting them, or, hop on my Slack channel, dropping an email. So Zoom doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all solution for every scenario. But it can be very helpful for certain stand-up meetings, for connecting with your team every once in a while, and definitely for me and for digital marketing, whenever I want to chat with a potential client or prospect in this situation. I just feel like that camera touch really goes a long way. Tip number 6, you never turn on mute. There are a lot of background noises and it only amplifies when you're working from home. So if you have a dog, you have young children running around, it's actually really helpful while keeping your video on to mute yourself. The mute button is very easy to find. It's in the lower left-hand corner. So when you know that there's construction, there's consistent noise in your background, it will be most ideal to turn on mute. Otherwise, that background noise will actually interrupt the entire meeting. Related to tip number 6, actually tip number 7, which is you never turn off mute. So after turning on mute, some people just have it automatically turned off at all times. So what happens is, I think this tip is especially real for women that our voices are often not heard, and you might feel like people don't even want to hear your opinion. I experienced this firsthand working in business and consulting firms. So I urge that for, especially for women and also younger employees, that you feel like joining a meeting and not speaking up is the right thing to do. I disagree with that. So when it's time to share your idea during a brainstorm session, during a status meeting, make sure to unmute and let people know that your opinion actually matters and you have something to say and you're ready to say them. And tip number 8 is about not hogging airtime. There are situations where you probably have seen, and a lot of people hop on a group Zoom meeting and all of a sudden just take up the entire airtime. It should be clear that it's a group discussion or a brainstorm, but for some reason, one person couldn't stop talking. So you want to be aware of that, and especially looking around. If it is about a collaboration that's not a presentation, it's important to know when you start talking and when you have to stop so that other people are invited. In fact, there are some tricks that I learned as an interviewer. I noticed that when I interview other people and have the best time having a group discussion is when everybody in the room is aware that other people's opinions all matter. So things you can say are, "Hey, Jim, what do you think of this?" in a very genuine way without surprising Jim. Or you can even tease that out ahead of time for people who are shy, that you can give them a heads up to say, "Hey, at this point of the group discussion, I would love to, call you out on this. I hope you don't mind, but here are some of the questions I'm going to ask." Those are great tricks to get everybody activated and engaged. Tip number 9 in Chinese, tip number 9, which is you're sending private messages. Now, one thing to know that there's nothing super private about Zoom. Even if you feel like you're sending a private message to Joe Schmo, Jane Doe, if the host decides to record the meeting and download chat, turns out that your host is able to view all the public messages as well as the private ones. So anything super private you don't want anybody to see, do not use the Zoom private messages. Tip number 10, you're clicking away from your Zoom windows. A lot of people do this, even I do this for research purposes. As I'm running some of the status meetings with my clients, they bring up a book, they bring up an idea. Next thing you know, I am, Googling something so I can be educated and learn more about it. But it can be a mistake or a bad habit as you're building, especially if you're, closing it down to look at different browsers, social media on your phone, then not only it's very noticeable and appears very unprofessional, but on the other hand, just so you know, Zoom just released a attention span monitor, which means that right now Zoom is giving hosts the ability to monitor the attention span of their attendees and see how engaged they are. Just so something you want to be aware of. Tip number 11, you're treating Zoom meetings as less formal. I believe that I mentioned a kind of similar theme, right? We've all seen some of the Zoom fails. You want to look professional, come in with an agenda, be prepared, learn specific skills as this video is talking about, to get you more prepared for a Zoom meeting. You probably have seen a lot of people who are professional speakers really know their crafts during an in-person meeting, but somehow they can't really deliver that during a virtual meeting such as Zoom. So, dress the part and make sure that, you don't just wear pajama pants. You want to make sure that you're wearing something you're not going to be embarrassed in case you have to stand up. Tip number 12. You're joining Zoom late. A lot of people, have to hop on and off Zoom meetings on a regular basis. I know this part is hard because if you're not a project manager and you don't control the meeting's start and stop time, it is hard to try to go to every meeting and be on time. Now, the tip for that is it's okay to let people know 5 to 10 minutes, but especially the 5 minutes to your next meeting mark, let the other people know that, hey, I have a few minutes left before I have to go to my next meeting. What are some of the things? What are the next steps? Can you or can I follow up with an email so I'm not late for the next meeting? Attending Zoom meetings on time is a huge thing. It's just like being a rower. I was a rower for like 8 weeks learning how to row. And this is one thing I learned. When you go to a Zoom meeting and you realize you're the last person to join, you literally just wasted everybody else's time. So even if you missed the meeting by 3 minutes and there are 8 other people waiting for you, you literally just wasted 24 minutes of their time. So be sure to be on time. And that is step number 1, to look professional. Tip number 14, you're not looking into the camera. I'm so tempted to look at myself in the little display window, but when I do this, I'm not looking at you guys. So you have to know where the camera is. If you're on your mobile phones, chances are the camera is at the top of your phone. It's a tiny little thing, and you can always practice too. One thing to practice is you can actually record a video of yourself and you know exactly where your eyes' focal points are. One trick to make sure that you look into your camera, in this case a webcam, is to move your Zoom window by shrinking it if you want to, and move the person or the speaker you want to look at to the top of your computer. So what I mean by that is when you move it to the top, it's actually getting a lot closer to the webcam and as if you're looking into the webcam. I know that's not perfect. So what you want to do to increase engagement is every once in a while, you want to look up and look right into the webcam. So now we're on to engagement. Guess what else can actually improve engagement? A little charisma goes a long way, as I mentioned before. All you can do is smile. So imagine if this is how I'm recording the video, I'm looking at you or I'm looking away, uninterested. If I just put on a little smile, just like this, talking, speaking while just smiling a little bit. You don't have to exaggerate it, right? That would be too extreme and it will be really tiring for your facial muscles, but you can just have a hint of smile and just have an open heart. That goes a long way. Tip number 15, not giving enough thoughts to your background. So I also mentioned this a little bit earlier related to branding, having guitar or different elements, props in the background. That's great. But some of you may be thinking, wow, our living condition just wouldn't allow me to even have an office to myself. It's really messy. I have clients who work from the basement or from a closet somewhere. So what you can do in that case is you can turn on virtual background. Now, I have videos on virtual backgrounds. There are a lot of options out there, but it can be a static image, something that's very memorable, very meaningful to your life, or it can even be like a slow motion video. So that can go a long way. Virtual backgrounds can be super fun and very useful. Number 16, you think headphones are optional. Now, if you have a lot of background noise, or if you're giving a presentation, but there are kids running around, your neighbors going through construction. I keep saying construction because I'm witnessing a lot of that in my house right now. You want to wear a headphone. Not only will allow other people to hear you better, you can actually hear them better too. So there are different headphones. I can include some products links below. Tip number 17, you've heard this one before, which is Zoom bombing. It was pretty scary for parents and teachers who host meetings in front of minors. Of course, they really want to make sure it's super safe. Even if you're running a sales or marketing meeting in front of adults, I'm sure you do not want any random people to come in and post images and videos. So what you can do about that, we have a separate video to walk you through every step. And since the release of that video, Zoom has taken the matter super seriously. So now Zoom basically forces us to have a password associated with all our meeting, whether it's personal meeting room or a regular Zoom meeting as well as Zoom webinars, that's a great step. And there are also other measures you can do, such as only allow authenticated. There are other steps you can take, such as only allowing authenticated users to join your meeting. Do not allow people to rejoin the meeting if they've been kicked out, things like that. Also, enabling waiting room so that you can validate every single person. I would say enable waiting room is a good idea if your meeting list isn't ginormous. Otherwise, I personally find it to be so much work to have to verify different people as they come in. Tip number 18, there are a lot of screen share going on. I'm a big screen share person because I do a lot of tutorials. I coach a lot of clients. So at times I do have to show them, hey, this is how you use this. Is this where you click? This is how you get stuck. But make sure that when you are running a group meeting, large group meetings with facilitations, you want to turn off your computer notifications. Yes, you do, including your iMessages, anything, any sound that may come through, any embarrassing messages or personal messages that may come through, disable all of that. Another thing is I wear an Apple Watch, and the notification sound, even through here, can be really annoying. So all you have to do is, slide up and simply enable notifications off. And that will be very helpful during your meeting. Tip number 19 is you don't want to keep sharing your screen when it's not asked for. I know some people are really into screen sharing, but it is helpful in situations where people are trying to follow a plan. This is a formal presentation. What you don't want to do is when people don't expect there to be a screen share and you pop it right on the screen, and people will be very distracted and even disoriented. The reason is once you start a screen share on Zoom, the screen share takes over the entire screen and pushing people to the side, right? Now there's a trick. If you want to share screen, and people do expect that, and they still want to see each other, remind your attendees that there is a little slider in between your screen share and all the attendees. They can actually drag the slider back and forth, therefore reducing the screen as needed and increasing the thumbnails of everybody else within the meeting as needed. Tip number 20, we made it all the way through all the tips, and I would love to know which one you like the most, or which ones you like the most or find most helpful. Now, the last tip is engaging people in the modern age. Remember that people's attention span is very, very short. A few years ago it was 7 seconds. It was measured by Google Analytics. And today it's just about a few seconds, like 2 to 3 seconds, right? So if people find something boring, they will distract themselves with social media and other means. What you want to do is really study and think through the tips that I provided prior to this, and think about what you can improve little by little. First of all, it has to be progressive. There are things that you can do within Zoom to increase people's engagements. Smile a little, be prepared for the meeting, really engage with each individuals within the meeting, and promote other people so that they can talk and share their ideas. But also, Zoom has built-in features such as using breakout rooms, a feature that allows a group such as 8 people to be broken into 2 groups of 4 groups of 2. How are you going to play this? There are also polling features as well. You can ask people questions. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Whatever it may be, the subjects that are relevant to your organization's and purpose or agenda of the meeting, of course. Also, there are features within Zoom webinars, for example, that's called Q&A, that people can actually ask questions. And you as a facilitator or a host can then, monitor that and being able to answer through text, or you can answer live during the meeting. So those features really go a long way when it's used correctly. Now, to summarize, there are 20 tips. I'm going to list them in the description below. The most important thing and takeaway is that you will not be able to get better at everything. Remind yourself for every single tip during every meeting. The idea is that we all progressively learn, and to be aware of these situations and tips are very, very helpful. And I agree that you don't necessarily need to apply all 20 of them to every meeting. So think about the different situations you're in, family Zoom meetings versus your one-on-one coaching sessions versus these large Zoom webinars and such. Thank you so much for watching. It's been super fun to be able to engage with this community. I really cannot thank you guys enough for me to open myself up to be able to teach in such a way that I find so joyful. Hey, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, because I cannot wait to see you in the next video. So much love, be well, and I will see you very soon. Mwah.